Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session, which is called Setting Up Your Website. And we're joined by my fantastic speaker, Doodlebug from We Are Doodlebug. So, Jonathan, I'm going to leave the audience in your capable hands, and I will hide, and I'll be back for the Q&A.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So I was asked to come and talk about websites, and I was like, want to come and talk about websites? Yes, I do want to come and talk about websites. I love the whole concept of digital marketing and how it all fits together. And the reason why talking about your website when you're a startup is important is because when you're starting up a business, it seems like everybody's asking you to spend money, pay this, pay that, pay the other, and it's tempting to cut corners. But what I want to do is to talk to you about how you shift your mind to make sure that you're thinking about a website as an investment so that you're getting more money back from it than you're actually using to pay for it. I'm just trying to use the technology here, so bear with me shortly. So do you need a website? Obviously, I'm going to say yes. Absolutely, you need a website, without a doubt. But that's what I do. Everything we do is built around the website. The website is the keystone, the cornerstone in all your marketing efforts. Everything these days that you put your message out there on has a link back to your website. When you go on social media, you should have a link to your website around. When you send out letters to prospective clients, you should have a link to your website in there that they can easily search for and find. When you do flyers, leaflets, business cards, it's always got your website on it. And the reason you want a website as your keystone is because you've got full control over that website. If you're in control, you can make sure that it says what you want it to say. You can make sure it does what you want it to do. But that's also where the danger is, because you're full control. If you're on social media sites, the platforms are run by those big companies for their benefit to make sure that their business model is fulfilled. What you need is a place, an asset that's online that you can use as your space where you have full control over what's going on. Taking the theme of a cornerstone. Keystone, sorry. This slide shows you the sheer volume of different elements that are out there for your digital marketing, and all of these elements are there. As an indicator, 10 years ago there was around 800 recognized systems for managing digital marketing activities, so posting, blogging, that sort of thing. We're now into many thousands of recognized products that are out there that you can use, and it's only going to carry on growing. So having your little corner of it that you can bring people back to, that you can control their experience and you can make sure that they're doing what you want them to do is really, really important. Now, I talked a little bit earlier on about the price, and you've got a choice really. Your price can be the cost in money, or your price can be the cost in your time. Both are valid. I've had one client who came to me and he said, "Can you have a look at my website?" And I said, "Well, I've looked at it. I've run all the tests. I've been through it with a fine tooth. Actually, you know, it's really good. I'd be happy with that if we built that." The problem he had was that it had taken him every night. He was working full time on the business, and every night he'd been spending hours and hours and hours getting to grips with the content management system, with how to build it, how to make it look good, how the user experience worked, and all those different things were things that he was having to learn from scratch. And he said to me, he said, "Yeah, thanks for being nice about it, but if I did it again, I'd want someone else to do it because it just took so long to do." Now, that was an e-commerce site, and so there was various complexities around that, which meant that it was bigger than the normal project. that's your choice, really. You're either learning from scratch or you're asking someone else to do it in a more cost-effective way, because they've got the knowledge and the understanding and how to put it together, which will help you then to focus on the things that you do well, which is your core business. And I know that we've got lots of different things going on. You're all brand new and starting up, which is fantastic. But that you want to be working on your core things, not on things that aren't necessarily your specialism. Which brings me on to the purpose of your website. Why is it so important? Why do people bang on about websites all the time? And you've got to have a website, you've got to have a website, you've got to have a website. And there's a danger in thinking of your website as being a simple storefront. It's how we all start. We all think, oh, we need to get out there so people can see us. And having a storefront is really important. It needs to look good. It needs to reflect your ethos and your company. It needs to make sure that the visitors feel comfortable there. They want to visit and want to come into. But there's a lot more to it that you need to be aware of as you're setting up your website. Yes, it needs to look lovely. The competition out there these days is high, because there's a lot of really good looking websites out there. So how do we make a distinction? Well, the important bit to remember is that you're trying to reach audiences. And I always split this into two key audiences, because there's a robot audience and there's a human audience. And I've chosen these pictures. The robot audience, robots, we're talking about search engines. We're talking about, and by search engines, it could be Google, it could be Bing, it could be Yahoo, it could be Amazon, it could be any of the big platforms that you're regularly searching for information or products or entertainment on. Those are the robots. The reason I chose a picture of a child is because that's the other end of the spectrum. There's a reason why the last ever, they reckon the last profession that's going to be automated and put into and done by robots is a primary school teacher. And the reason is, humans have a very particular way of looking at the world. They're emotional. They have responses to things that aren't necessarily what you're going to be expecting, and you need to communicate with them, because it's not always going to be exactly what you expect. And the key thing with a website, so when you get your website started, you need to make everything really, really simple. You need to make sure that every time someone visits there, you know that it's really clear that they can see what you want them to do, and be really explicit about it. The language you use needs to be simple. The routes you need to use need to be simple. 1 or 2 clicks to get to where they need to be is perfect. And at the same time, you need to be thinking about those bots and making sure that the robots put your site in front of the people who are going to use it. Because if you block them off, it's going to cause they won't be in there. They won't be able to put it in front of the people. And the biggest issues I find with websites are normally in the back end, around where people have blocked off pages because they go, I don't want people to see that, but it's got really important content on it, or they've got search engines are finding an inappropriate post that doesn't sell in the right way. It's something that was put on there ages ago and wasn't taken down, and it confuses the landscape for the search engine. So we make it really simple for the search engine. We make it really clear what the page does. We make it really what the information is that's on that page, and we make it really clear what we want the user to do when they go to that page. And when the algorithm reads that page, it's much more likely to pick the right sort of person to visit your site. It's not an exact science. Please don't listen to people who say, I will guarantee you these results with your SEO, with your search engine marketing, because it is a very, very complex engine we're dealing with. But what I'm going to talk to you today about is how you can make it so that you've got the best chance of actually talking to the robots and talking to the humans. Because whereas a robot is looking at the site and saying, I'm looking for these header tags, I'm looking for these headlines, I'm looking for this content, and if it's not there, it just walks away. Humans are different. They're easily distracted. They wander through life looking at what interests them at that particular moment, and to varying levels. So if you've got something that people desperately need, and it's and they're going to be in trouble if they don't get it. Then they will put more effort into finding it than if it's something which is just nice to have. But then our businesses are based around all of those different elements, and we need to make sure that they get to the right place at the right time. And it's linked to how people search, because when we think about search, we think about maps, we think about finding your way in a big in a physical environment, and we've all obviously this is a map, but these days we use maps on our phones, we use maps on computers, we use maps, and that's how we find our way around the physical world. But that's not how people work when they're searching. When they're searching on search engines to answer questions or to find products, they don't look at the whole landscape and then focus in on the one that looks good. They behave in a very different way. They look much more like a scent hound. So when you're setting up your website, you need to think about how you're attracting people to come to your website, but then also what you're doing with that person when they come to the website. Because what happens is, if they lose the scent, if they click on an advert and they lose the scent, they go back to where they came from and they start again, and they'll go to someone else. You want to make sure that you keep that person on your site until they've converted, till they have become they've done whatever the action is that you want them to do on the site. Now, if you're a local, one more thing before we talk about the sort of user experience and things. If you're a local business, this is probably the most powerful thing I can say to you right now. Your logo, the first things you really need to do is to get your name, your address, and your phone number really consistent everywhere where it's listed in the directories. Start with Google My Business. If you're not on Google My Business already, get on it. It's free. They'll walk you through it, and they'll tell you how to do it. But Google My Business is that should be your first step. But make sure that wherever you're listed, your name, your address, and your phone number are always the same. Now, if you're not got a physical location, you also need to make sure that things like your web address are listed properly. But it's really, really important to make sure, and it illustrates well what we've been talking about. People put all sorts of search terms in, hairdresser near me, potters near me, whatever it is they're looking for. The search engine reads it really simply, and they're trying to send people to places that are really, really reliable, that are going to answer their questions and are going to make sure that because if people don't trust the results on Google, they stop using it. So Google needs to make those results relevant. So it will look at all your listings, and if your listings are all slightly different, like so one says we are Doodlebug Limited, and the other one says we are Doodlebug, it's like, well, that's not the same. A human looking at it says, yeah, that's the same, but it's not the same to the robots. So it's really important to make sure that we've got the commonality across all of those listings and make sure that you're in the right place at the right time. Then we talk about trusting the sites, trusting your content. The search engine sends the person there who's asked the question, sends them there, and what do they find? They might find a product straight away and be ready to buy, but often you'll find that people need to have 7, 8, 9, 10 touch points with you, up to 12 often, make sure that they're actually going to be ready to buy. So what do? Well, we bring them in with content, but we need to make sure that what they're coming to read is relevant to what you're selling. Whether that's a service, whether that's you as a person, whether that's a product, we need to make sure that it's relevant to what you're selling. So you need to make sure your blogging talks about how your services solve the problems that people are looking for. So there's various tools out there. Also ask.com is the one I use most of them. But what you do is you put in there search terms based around your product or service, and it tells you the questions that people are asking at the moment. And it's really simple. Then you say, right, okay, I'll do a blog about that question. I'll answer that question for people. I'll put it up on my website. I'll share it on my social media. And your website becomes this place that people come to for more than just buying and selling. And it becomes a repository for information and knowledge that actually starts to teach the search engines over a significant amount of time that you are a trustworthy person to come to and get the information from. And then if you've got several products and services, you can build a structure like this around them. I mean, obviously, like it's on the website, but this is to illustrate what I'm saying. Each of the big circles is a different product or service, and your blogs are based around them. We can go with bigger sites. We go into much more complex depth about this, but for a start point, that's where your mind needs to be. What am I putting on there that's going to bring people to look at what I'm offering? I've put backlinks on there purely because people talk about them a lot. Please, please, please don't buy backlinks, because if Google knows that you've bought them from a disreputable site, they'll push you right the way down the rankings. You get backlinks by speaking to people, networking with people, sharing content with people, sharing projects with people, and asking all the time, can we put a blog on with a link back to my site? And you do the same for them, and that's how you build it up over time. Again, very short. I could probably talk to you for a good couple of days on how to deal with all of this, but that's the basic message: is make sure that they're natural backlinks where you've actually got a reason to link to that person. I would. These are my details. We're going to take some questions in a second, but just before we start doing that, I do have a special offer for the people who are attending today, whereby we'll do a free, no obligation audit of where you are now. Don't worry if it's nothing. What we will do is we'll go through everything that you've got to start off with, and you'll get recommendations from me on what your top 3 things are that you need to do next to make sure that your marketing works, and to make sure you're getting your eyes on your website as much as possible. If you want to take up that offer, then we have there's a link. The link will be shared in the chat. There's a link on the literature. Click on it and you can time with me. Don't worry if it's a few weeks in the future. We've got plenty of time to be working on this, and it would be lovely to speak to you and hear more about your wonderful businesses. Thank you very much, and I believe we are ready to take some. Here's Sabrina.
Hi, Jonathan.
Control.
Fantastic. That was great presentation, and thank you so much. Gosh, I learned quite a lot as well. I think, the website and the whole digital marketing environment is such a fascinating one, and it is just, there's so many ways you can really just optimize your business and growth and all of that good stuff if you just explore every nook and cranny, isn't there? So so thank you for sharing all of that. If you want to just stop sharing your presentation, and we'll have the full screen on yourself and the full focus. So fantastic. To all of you, if you've got any specific website related questions for Jonathan, please do drop them in the question tab or even in the chat tab right now. I know that it's quite a loaded topic as well. It would be interesting to hear for a lot of you there. Do you already have a website? Are you working on one? Are you working with a designer on one? Are you using different website tools? That's always interesting for us to know. Leanne in the chat already said she's just booked in for tomorrow with you, Jonathan. So that's great. Fantastic. So we've got a first bite. So yes, Jonathan, I have a question for you. What is the sort of top, or what are the sort of top 3 questions that I guess clients come to you with when it comes to digital marketing and your website? What is kind of, what would you say you're busiest working on?
So people come to me with very little background knowledge on why they've got even a website, what they wanted to do. And one of the things we talk through very carefully is actually what is it that you want people to do when they're on your website. And it's a really important question to answer, because so we've got companies who are so there might be high value retail. What they want is for people to sign up for a design meeting, or to actually to submit a form, so they can actually get their details in their system and say, and begin that sort of sales process with them. Other people, it's not about filling in a form. It's not about booking an appointment. It's about picking up the phone, and so we push them to pick the phone up, to make sure that the phone is the first primary method of contact. And then other people, you know, they've got a site which is. It's an information site. They want to share information. They want to blog. They want to talk about, you know, various different things that are of interest to them. And so that's, again, that's a different purpose. But the key thing is to make sure that you know, when someone comes onto your site, pretty much what they're going to be seeing and doing. So when you all of you think now, when you go onto a website, if it's on a laptop screen or a desktop screen, think about where your eyes go, because your eyes automatically go to the top left hand corner, because that's where we read from. And we see air meets I've got at the moment, and then we scan across the top. So as you scan across the top, often there's going to be instructions on what to do next. When they get to the right hand side, I always put some kind of call to action there. So a button saying, you know, click here to book an appointment, or click here to book your design session, or click here to make a call. And then your eyes go diagonally across the screen. So they go diagonally from top right to bottom left. So in the middle of that screen above the fold, it's great to have a lovely picture. And if you're a graphic designer or something, then you probably want something beautiful there, which says, "I'm a graphic designer. This is my work. This is how wonderful I am." But you've got to remember not to miss that trick of, as they go across the page, seeing what they need to do. So wherever they go on the site after that, they know what you want them to do. So they leave that first landing page knowing where the form is, the contact details are, what the actions that you want them to take are, because you've been really clear and really explicit with them. And it's missed so often. That's the biggest thing that we bring to it, is to make sure that the website looks beautiful, but it also does what you want it to do.
Functional, exactly. Yeah. Perfect. So we have a question from Jacob, who's saying, what are the advantages of hiring a website developer as opposed to using sites such as Squarespace?
It's as I said in the presentation, it's largely around the time you've got to learn all of this stuff. If when you go to a web designer, you're tapping into an expertise that they've spent probably many years developing. And they'll come up with solutions very quickly. They'll understand what the activities of the visitors be like, what they're going to be doing, and they'll know how to put those things in place. Now, am I saying don't use Squarespace? No, of course I'm not. If you're interested in it, it's amazing. I hope that my passion for what I do comes across, because actually is a fantastic is a fantastic skill to have. However, you have to balance that up with the fact that this is not a hobby. This is a business that you're doing, and is the best way to invest your time building a website. It's better to build your sales process, or to plan out your meeting structures, or to get HR sorted. Yeah. So it's all about prioritizing and where where that lies for you.
Absolutely.
So, by all means, Squarespace is great. Wix, a lot of people like Wix. I don't, but that's because it takes me a long time to unpick what they've tried to do when they come to me with a Wix site. WordPress is available as well. So there's all sorts of solutions out there, but what you're missing is the depth of experience that people have got, and that has a greater value because it's built up over a longer time than the money you're spending on that particular website.
Brilliant. So we've got a question from Kay. How to choose the right host to ensure speed reliability for an e-commerce site, and that's cost effective? So
if you're there's a lot of variables, as you'll see from me going, and it would be easy. it depends on the size of your site. It depends on the number of things that you're selling. It depends whether you on the security level you want, and all that sort of thing. So, you can have a site that is hosted on its own server, and it has no other traffic going onto that server. It's really secure, it's really quick, it's really safe. It costs you upwards of £600 a month. So, now is that now. For some of our clients, it's not an e-commerce site, but we've got a large academy trust coming on board. For them, it's going to be that's important because they've got 40 sites running, and they need to be secure, and they need to be quick, and they need to be easily accessible. So for that makes sense. For most other people, having your own server is not necessary. But a lot of that crosses over as well with the different content management system you're using. So, for example, if you're using WordPress, you need to be careful that you've got all of the security things enabled and plugins running to make sure that you're not under cyber attack. Because WordPress is wonderful. There's lots and lots of scope there. But that means because everything's open source and everyone can build stuff for it, they can also build malicious things that attack them. And so we don't. We will build in WordPress if people want to, but we don't tend to because it's. How did I hear it described the other day? So it does so many things, but if you were to, it's a little bit like the spork. A spoon and a fork is great, but it's not necessarily exactly what you need. So again, if you're worried about that, talk to the developer who's working with it. If you're not happy with their answers, then get second, third opinions. There are companies who specialize in hosting, and they're very good. They're very cost effective, but you do get what you pay for.
Got it. Leanne has a question on, hi, Jonathan, do you have any extensive knowledge in WooCommerce on WordPress? Okay,
we don't use WooCommerce ourselves. If that's what you're interested in, I can put you in touch with people who do. That's fine. We have a different system, which is it's been developed as a competitor to WooCommerce, and it does all the stuff that WooCommerce does, but it doesn't have the WordPress issues that I've sort of touched on before.
Got it. So we've got a really great question actually on security from Suzanne. I began a website using WordPress, and I recognize that this is not my forte. When we discuss data protection, how do we know account is safe when we hand over passwords and such?
You mean passwords for your so I'm assuming that you mean passwords for your WordPress account.
Yeah.
And you've got presumably you'll have some form of agreement with the development company who's working on it. They also have there's legal requirements for them to be, if they're dealing with people's data, that they've got to hold it safely, and there's legal recourse if they don't. Again, get recommendations, talk to them, make sure that you're happy with the way that they're operating, ask them about security and what they're doing to make sure it's secure. That's it feels like a lot of soft actions, but you're building up a picture of whether this is a trustworthy company.
Got it. So basically make sure that they have an actual like a policy and a procedure in place. So if you are working with a developer, to double check that, Suzanne, to make sure that they have something that is certified and a procedure and everything in place, and they're following all the protocols that they need to in order to protect those passwords and the access that you hand over, correct?
And so if you want to have a conversation more in depth about your particular case, then please do book in, and that's fine. As I say, they wind me up because they say you just like talking, John. I like hearing about what's going on. But yeah,
I love that. So Jacob has a question: what are any potential complications that could happen when switching between web developers? Are there things that we need to be aware of?
Yeah. So if you're talking about if you're talking about taking a website wholesale and putting it with a new hosting with a new developer, that's there are a set of risks around that. I have a specialist who I use to do it purely because the pitfalls are catastrophic. It's not something that I would have anyone sort of fiddling about with. We had a case where they're not my customer, and she rang me up. Someone I know personally. She rang me up and said, "My website's disappeared," and it had literally just gone overnight. And we tracked it down. We found out what happened, and but they had to go back to an old set of files that had been saved as a backup. But those sorts of things. For example, we back up every 24 hours. So if you mess it up, you've got to. We only have to go back a day, but you need to check whether where the backups are, how you access them, who's going to do the migration. Because the other thing is, once you do the migration, sometimes it then just it breaks once it's on the new server, and you need someone who's a specialist to go in and say, right, okay, this is what's gone wrong. This is where this is what's where the code is wrong for this particular situation. And I mean, for most people who I work with, it's more cost effective to rebuild it, even if it's the same design. More cost effective to rebuild it for them than it is to migrate it. But that's that will depend on the developer you're talking to and what they're happy to do, and it's an individual thing. But I would definitely say if you are going to migrate your website, you need to do it with someone who's done it before. It's what they do, and they know what they're doing. It's definitely worth it.
Expertise, expertise and experience.
If you're 2 months in and you just had enough of them and you just then it's not such a big risk. But if you've got if it's part of your identity and it's your brand out there on the site and people are interacting with it, people are engaging with it, then it's a big risk, a big business risk.
Got it. Perfect. Thank you, Jonathan. We've got a question from Reina. What about the monthly maintenance for an Elementor WordPress site? Can this be done ourselves? And if so, presume backup needed each time? And if not, how much does it cost to maintain a site?
Again, it will depend on who you're asking to do it, but you do tend to get what you pay for. Maintaining a site is so there's different levels. You can do everything yourself. What a lot of people do is pay kind of so that you can get quite good people who will run the updates for WordPress sites, and it'll cost around sort of £20-30 a month. And they become basically they become your sort of safety net. So they'll when there's an upgrade, because you might have heard with WordPress, sometimes when you upgrade, it breaks the site. It's not often fatal, but you could be offline for a period of time, and there are techniques and strategies to do that. Now, you can do it yourself. You can do it yourself. You can go and you can research how to do that, how to do updates, how to make sure things running smoothly. But it's whether it's worth the money to you.
Fantastic. So we've got 2 more questions for Jonathan, and then we're going to end this session. So the first question is from Philip. I'm trying to achieve a cost-effective solution for startups, and he's got a website on there. Would you recommend sticking with just WooCommerce, which is his experience, or adjust the platform for the client's needs? Right. So I'm making an assumption here. You mean that you're providing websites for clients? Exactly. I think that's what he's doing. Yeah. And so for startup clients. If someone comes to you with if someone comes to you and says, if someone comes to me, for example, and says, I need an e-commerce website. Yeah. I'll go with what I'm good at. Yeah. And they'll generally not be so worried about. They might have heard of WooCommerce, which makes it stronger. It gives it makes it a bit of an easier sell at times. But I would be more interested in making it, if it's for startups, and making it simple, making it cost effective,
And when you do that, you want to replicate as much work as you can. So if you're doing a different platform for every client, then that would be that's going to eat into your profit margins. What I would do is say, right, this is our basic package. This is our premium package, and this is our gold standard or our platinum package or whatever it is. So you can then build in, so yes, you can have an additional, you can have a different type of site, but it's going to be on this package, which costs this, and you'll find that most of the time you won't be dealing with the headaches of going with lots of different platforms, because most people just, they want the thing that sells.
Fantastic. And our question is from Ramon. He has asked, I have a music studio to promote and some music video tutorials to sell online. Is it possible to join both options in only one website, or is it better to split it into two websites? What would you recommend?
So can you just repeat the products that we've got there?
So he has a music studio that he wants to promote, and then music video tutorials that he wants to sell online.
Okay, so you can do them all on one site. There's various different platforms you can use for that. One we've used is Kajabi, but there are different ones where you can you can sell courses, you can sell tutorials, you can say. You could also, if you, when you're brand new, you could have a site which has where you embed videos from YouTube or Vimeo or whatever your platform is there. If it's not an interactive thing, if it's literally a broadcast of a tutorial, then that's a really good cost-effective option. And the question really is, how strong are your brands? And it's a broader digital marketing issue. Technically, it doesn't. The difference is having a different site for each of them is not a problem. It's not an issue. You've got double the build price, obviously, because not quite double, because one will be complicated than the other. But you've got that's the thing. Now, if your music studio has a good name and you want to sell your tutorials connected to that name or to your name, if you're the person people go to, then having them on the same site or closely linked is important. And that's why you can set it up so that, if as you grow, if it becomes a much bigger entity, then you can link to the platforms from your site, or you can build the entire site on one of the tutorial platforms. But at the moment, I'd say, if you're just starting out, get a good solid site, have embedded videos on it. Use a platform like YouTube, because otherwise, if you try and put too many videos on the site itself, it slows it down. But make sure that it's really clear on the pages what the person needs to be at that page for. That user experience again.
And I'd also add to that, Ramon, maybe also identify which one is the main product. So that the other one is a supplementary that complements your main product. So whether you want to put the focus on the music studio, and through the music studio you're able to get the tutorials, or you want to put the focus on the music tutorials, and through the music tutorials you get access to the studio. So figure out, because otherwise it'll be a power play between the two, and that might become difficult to manage as well. Would you say, Jonathan?
That's really, really good advice. Really good advice.
So definitely focus on that. And wonderful. Thank you everyone for your questions. I knew there were going to be some fantastic questions, and I'm delighted for Jonathan that we had so many fantastic questions. And thank you so much, Jonathan, for your time and your insight. It was fantastic. I've seen in the chat that you've already got a couple of calls booked. So get ready for those.
Thank you. I will. I love them, so that's all good.
Fabulous. So Jonathan is going to head straight over to the lounge when I end this session in a few seconds. So for those of you who would love to connect with him, be sure to join him at the table for a virtual coffee and a virtual chat. And of course, connect with him offline if you don't manage to connect with him. And I will see you all for a session on social media, which is well, MySpace. And I look forward to delivering that session in about a half an hour. So see everyone in a bit and take care. Thank you again, Jonathan. And
thank you.
Enjoy the lounge.